Okay, let's get started. This is Steve Harari with Staffingbook, and today's webinar is the new Staffingbook Recruiter webinar. And we're going to go for about 30 minutes, and we'll be taking some questions at the end. You can also type in your question during the talk, and I'll try and see it as they're posted. So feel free to type in a question or save it for the end if you wish, and you can ask it live. Very briefly, my background is about 20 plus years in the technology industry, working with a variety of technology-based businesses. I'm a newcomer to the staffing industry, and have really immersed myself in the last couple of years. I've talked to literally hundreds of recruiters, employers, candidates, but again, members of our team here have quite a bit of staffing industry background. So just brief introduction there. We are the marketplace for passive candidates, and by passive candidates we refer to professional level individuals who are gainfully employed, who are open and receptive to reviewing opportunities as they come along, but they wish to retain their privacy. These are often the candidates that will not be in Monster, will not be in Career Builder, will not be on Dice, in many cases will not have a LinkedIn profile. We have three types of users in our system: candidates, we just talked about candidates, recruiters, and employers. By recruiters, we refer to agency or outside recruiters, could be called headhunters, executive search professionals, contingency search. They receive typically a placement fee when they place a candidate. And by employers, we refer to in-house recruiters, hiring managers, HR personnel. So again, I realize the term recruiter applies to both in-house as well as outside, but in our case, and most of the audience today are outside recruiters, people who work for staffing firms. Why become a Staffingbook Network recruiter in the first place? We believe you will make more placements, have access to more employers, mentor more passive candidates, and add leverage to your business versus chasing job orders. And we also really believe you can help differentiate yourself from your competition. This is a model we've developed which will be playing out over the next year as we find out whether how accurate it really is. But basically, this is a path for a single recruiter to bill $350,000 per year using Staffingbook. The key to this model is moving through these four phases: planting, nurturing, growing, and then harvesting. And the unit of measure, if you will, for the potential for success is the number of sponsored candidates that you have in the Staffingbook system. So as you move from handful to 25 to 100, if you're able to get over 100, and eventually if you can get as high as 250, just the raw mathematics of having talented, skilled candidates suggests that you're going to have a certain number of inquiries, which will produce a certain number of interviews, which will produce a certain number of placements per year. So again, this is a very generic model. Placement fees are going to vary depending upon the type of positions you're placing people. Are you doing mostly temp or contract placements? Are you doing direct hire placements? Are you placing at the $150,000 level or more like at the $75,000 a year level? All that will impact this, but the key to the whole model is you sponsoring candidates in the system, being a mentor to them, reviewing opportunities together. These profiles are privacy protected, and in fact that's really the attraction of Staffingbook over a Monster or a Career Builder. The vast majority of passive candidates are unwilling to post their resume and post their profile on these open public job boards. So that's something to very much keep in mind. Just a couple more slides before we get to the actual demonstration. Building your passive candidate pool is really an investment in your practice, an investment in your business, and it will pay back handsomely over time. But we've really identified 4 steps, and we're not going to go through those steps in any detail today. Today's talk is really more to show you how to use this system. But by way of background, identifying, approaching, mobilizing and then mentoring candidates. I mean, you can identify candidates from prior placements, from reference checks that you've done, great candidates that found their way to you, but you just didn't have a search that matched their background. People in your kids' schools, community, church groups, newspaper articles. There's many, many ways that we all come across other people. And in the staffing business, and you can tell me more than I might know about this, but you really come across a tremendous number of individuals, many of whom are very talented, very skillful, but you just don't have a search underway that matches their background. So now you've got something you can do with those folks. You can encourage them to and invite them through our system to get a confidential profile within Staffingbook with you as their mentor. So again, this is potentially a 30-minute topic in itself, but I've covered it just in a couple minutes. Final slide before we get to the demonstration. Many things are changing right now. We've used kind of the general term yesterday and today. Obviously, many parts of yesterday are still here today and will still be here tomorrow, but in the net, in aggregate, the phone and the fax is really moving towards a more web-centric means for accessing information, contacting people, conducting business. The resume, slowly but surely is giving way to the online profile. I would venture to guess that 10 years from now, it may be difficult to find a professional candidate that has a resume. They will have an online profile of some sort. Familiar recruiters are obviously a very key part of how businesses are built, and yet more and more employers are willing to work with other recruiters. They're becoming more familiar, more comfortable with the web. They're using LinkedIn. They're using other tools. Pre-existing terms are largely, or not, I shouldn't say largely, but are often less in favor than more flexible terms, market-driven terms. You don't lock into a 3-year agreement anymore on placing candidates with a given employer. These terms are more flexible. In many cases, they are candidate-specific. Physical location, the internet has brought everyone closer together. It's quite common to have a candidate in one state, a recruiter in another state, and an employer in yet a third state, and a successful placement still happens. So being able to work in that environment is increasingly important. And the one-to-one connections that we all understand are more and more, our connections are in the marketplace. There are many people connecting to many people, one to many or many to one. So what I'm going to show you now on the system, and I realize this is not too interactive at this stage, and I don't see any questions that have been typed in as of yet. But we're going to show you how to build your profile, how to sponsor candidates, how to make sure these candidates are protected, how to verify your candidates in the system, which is a very important thing to do, how to invite employers to view your candidates, and how to respond to inquiries from employers, as well as negotiating placement fees and terms, and how you can actually print out the final agreements. And then in the final few minutes, we'll briefly touch on what does it cost to use Staffingbook, and take your questions. So I'm going to exit the PowerPoint and actually go to the database here. And I'm going to log in as a recruiter. So imagine that this is actually one of you on the line. Here's your profile, your picture, I should say. You've uploaded an image. This is a young lady climbing a stack of papers. Hopefully that isn't what your office looks like, but you have a set of, this is your home page, much like a social media, Facebook or LinkedIn homepage. You have your referrals. You have messages that have come in. You have sponsorship requests. A candidate in our system can enter their profile and search for a sponsor and request you as their sponsor. You can decline or accept them. Similarly, you can invite a recruiter into the system, or invite a candidate into the system and sponsor them. So there's a number of ways that can occur. If you look at the public profile, I'm going to click on public profile for this recruiter. Again, this is an area that this profile will appear many times as associated with a given candidate. An employer is looking for particular recruiters. So you're going to want to put some attention into having a professional profile, basic contact information, web address. This particular recruiter says I've placed over 150 IT professionals over the past 8 years. Those are the kinds of things that inspire confidence in the employer. Let's go to candidates. I'm going to be working my way down part of this left-hand menu of options. So selecting candidates. I pull up my list of sponsored candidates. So again, here I am. I'm this Barber recruiter. This is my profile. The picture always is useful. It tells you who's actually accessing the screen. So right now, this is the recruiter accessing their own list of sponsored candidates. I have 8 candidates, everyone from Betty Flintstone to Wilma Rubble on down. Status of these candidates, inactive or active. Only an active candidate is viewable in employer searches. Again, the privacy protected profile that we want the employer to be able to see to determine if they're interested. If you have a candidate that just took a new assignment or they just started something, they may wish to be inactive at this point. The date that they were sponsored, how many inquiries you've had for each of them. And then there's an action menu over here. Let's look at John Smith. You have the ability to edit the profile of the candidate. You and the candidate share mutual editing privileges, with each of you having a history log of any modifications or changes that were made. Again, normally the candidate does the bulk of the preparation of the profile, but sometimes a recruiter may want to go in and make a few small changes in consultation with the candidate. So I can edit the profile. I can send a message. I can view inquiries regarding this candidate, John Smith. I can view my assessment of them. This is an assessment that is made visible to employers. A very useful tool for backing your candidate and highlighting their capabilities. I can cancel the sponsorship, or I can view the public profile. I'm going to actually show you the edited profile capability for this particular candidate, just to give you a little bit of a sense for that. So here's John Smith. He might need to upload a more professional photo than this one. He's sponsored by Barber Recruiter. Here I am. Because this is my candidate, I can view his resume. He's uploaded a resume. It's an SNR, Staffingbook Network Recruiter Verified Seal. I can go to the detailed profile. And I can see quite a bit of information that has been compiled. Titles, experience, industries, positions, skill sets. Again, for each section, there is an edit tab. So if I select edit, I can go right in and say, I'm going to add another skill. He knows he's a Unix guy. Unix. His proficiency is he's expert level in Unix. I'm going to take a particular skill set. Maybe Corba is not the skill set of his. So I can quickly go in and edit a profile. We've attempted to capture information that will be of use to the employer: degree, school of graduation, certifications, work authorization, is he a green card, permanent resident, U.S. citizen, languages spoken, fluency, current company, previous company, quite a bit of information. Let's close that. We also take some inventory of soft criteria or lifestyle questions. Commute tolerance, maybe he's only willing to commute 10 miles. Willingness to travel, maybe 50%. Willingness to relocate, things like that. We also capture a section we call work culture. Work culture is an attempt to establish what kind of position or work environment is this candidate best suited for. Do they like to lead teams or be on the team? Do they like structure and process, or do they like very free form? I want to work on an existing project that's been going on for a long time, or a brand new project. So things like that. Back to candidates. I want to show you quickly how you can add a candidate. So let's say you've got these 8 candidates, or maybe you're just starting out. Maybe someone on the line today is going to get started this afternoon and load 4 or 5 candidates in. You can go up here to add a new candidate, select it, and then type in the name. Say it's Joe Johnson. Email joe@yahoo.com. Just throw in a zip code. He's actually a finance and accounting person. Again, our system is focused on technology, finance, and accounting. Very broad interpretations of each of those areas. But we generally like to be able to put someone in either one bucket or the other. So let's say this is a finance and accounting. We save Joe Johnson. Maybe that email address I've typed in before. Let's say joe@hotjobs. Candidate can only be in the system one time for obvious reasons. We don't want multiple entries of a candidate with multiple recruiters. So Joe Johnson, email address already registered in Staffingbook. Let's imagine that Joe's name was Harriet, and I think that will work. I may gravitate towards typing in the same names again and again as I do this. So here we have Joe Johnson, and let's say I want to actually invite Joe. I've got him in the system initialized, but only a candidate can activate their account. So I'm going to select Invite Candidate, and basically you're going to be able to email Joe Johnson a message, and you can edit this message right in this window as you wish. Arbor Recruiter has identified you as a strong candidate for a privacy-protected profile on Staffingbook. Only you can activate your profile, so please click on the link below to activate your profile and edit it so that your public profile is viewable by employers. So you can send this invite. I'll go ahead and send it. And the email has been sent successfully. So that's one method. The other method is using your LinkedIn connections. If you see the box here, I'm going to select LinkedIn. Again, this is a very kind of high-powered way to do this. You need to give your permission for your LinkedIn address book to be accessed. Now I've got my LinkedIn database here. I've some 300 plus names. These are all my first level contacts. You need to have it needs to be a first level contact to actually import their data. But let's say someone Herbert. So now I've got Herbert Hess's information actually loaded into a preliminary profile. Even got an image of Herbert. Looks like he's running in a marathon here or something. Quite a bit of information has been populated. And I can select right here and add this candidate. I'm not going to do that now, but I think you get the idea how quick and how rapidly you can bring candidates into the system and invite them to participate. We also have a feature we call lists. If I select lists, I can group my candidates into groups. I've got a group of web developers, 4 of them, and a group of database architects, 3 of them. Let's look at my database architects. I can view the candidates. There they are, 3 of them. Now, a very powerful tool, I can forward this list. I'm going to forward this list of database architects to an employer. So again, Staffingbook is continuously working to drive employers to the system for obvious reasons, to search for candidates. But you can also reach out to an employer or multiple employers. Let's say Jason at IBM, I better not say IBM, but abc.com. Jason, take a look. You probably have a much more sophisticated message, but you can basically send this email right here. And these privacy protected quick profiles, as we call them, or thumbnail profiles, will be sent to Jason at abc.com with your cover note. And if Jason is interested, he selects candidate inquiry on any given candidate, and the request goes directly to you, typically with a proposal on fee and terms should that candidate be placed. So we'll show you more about that in a moment. Inquiries, and we're well along here. You're past the midpoint, all of you. This is a one location where I have all of the inquiries that have come in from employers. The left-hand column are the employer names. Column number 2 is my sponsored candidate that they were interested in. Column 3 are the job orders. Every employer creates a specific job order or job description that they associate with a given inquiry. So, XYZ Systems has a job order for sysadmin. They may have sent that to 3 different recruiters relative to 3 different candidates. We have a status here of are we waiting for a response from the employer? Here a couple are waiting the employer, a couple are waiting the recruiter. Let's quickly open up a couple of these. Let's say if I open up the second one, awaiting the recruiter. I want to show you the information that is displayed and what we have. So to orient you here, this is a recruiter. You are the recruiter. You're viewing this inquiry that has come to you. So here you are. Your profile is viewable right here to others. Here's the candidate of interest, John Smith. John's a verified candidate. The profile has been reviewed by the employer. That information has been posted. If we have a little extra time, I can show you that, or show you that at another time. The inquiry has come from this employer, Aerospace Avionics. It's a direct hire position as opposed to a contract or contract to hire. They need a seasoned web developer to jump in and help us take a project from concept to implementation. Needs broad web development background. Again, this job description is very brief. You can have job descriptions as long as the employer wishes them to be. They can upload a substantial amount of information. This particular inquiry is under negotiation. The 22% of salary has been proposed. They've also had an additional term of 30-day guarantee. This, I believe, was a counter offer by the recruiter. Our standard agreement is a 60-day guarantee period. So this recruiter was only willing to offer 30 days. Let's go ahead and agree to the terms in this box. And oh, by the way, if I wanted to counter the offer, I could stick in a new figure here, like, well, I'd only work for 25% or something like that as opposed to 22%. And that would go back to the employer, and then you'd have to wait and see what comes back. And again, you always run the risk that nothing comes back. That employer may not have been willing to go over 22%. They were engaged with other inquiries at the same time, and you have to use your judgment. Let's go ahead and accept this contract. And it gives me a caution here. By selecting accept contract, you are entering into a binding fee agreement that applies to this specific candidate. Do you still wish to proceed? I'm going to say okay. Again, very important here. We've gone to quite a bit of length to ensure that people understand they're entering into contractual agreements here. So let's view the final contract, if we will. And again, you can print this out. This is Barber Recruiter and Aerospace Avionics. This candidate inquiry has got a 6-month tail on it, or a period of applicability. Should this candidate end up being employed by that employer for any position whatsoever over a 6-month period from this date, you would be eligible for a placement fee. And this is to protect the recruiter. We have other measures in here to protect both the employer and the recruiter. If we just go to the bottom, we've captured a unique ID number for this reference. This particular number, which is accessible and retrievable later, matches this employer with this candidate sponsored by this recruiter. So it's got a unique inquiry with those 3 parties. The fee that was agreed to was 22% of annual salary, and annual salary is clearly spelled out in the agreement. 30-day guarantee period. Date of the agreement is today. The candidate's name is John Smith, which can now be revealed because we have an agreement in place. So tried to show you quite a bit there. Let me show you one other aspect of this. I'm going to log out as a recruiter and log in as a candidate for a moment. I'm doing this quickly in the interest of time. We've talked about the public profile and the private profile, and I showed you the profile of the previous candidate. Here's a profile of, it's not a cat, this is actually my cat, our family's cat. When you have to come up with photographs, you get very creative in something like this. So a detailed profile for this experienced software engineer includes quite a bit of information, but the public profile for this candidate is going to be much more restricted. So here's that same candidate, no name, no image, no resume, no video, no mailing address, no phone number, no cell number, no school that they graduated from, no current company that they work at. Again, we've really gone to lengths to ensure that you can trust that when you place a candidate or sponsored candidate in the Staffingbook, they're not going to be ripped off or pirated by another recruiter or an employer without an agreement being in place. So, and we really rely on you to help us if we have left any unknown holes in this. We want to close them up. So. Let me also show you quickly how one would sponsor. Again, you as recruiters are sponsors of candidates. So here I am a candidate. I have a recruiter sponsoring me. If I was brand new to the system and had come on my own and I wanted a sponsor, I would select search. I would select find. I could look by name if I knew the recruiter's name. I can search for a recruiter that I want to sponsor me. Maybe I'm interested in a particular background. I want to view the profile. I like to look at their website. But by selecting request for sponsorship, I'm essentially saying as a candidate, I would like to be sponsored by you. And then you will receive this inquiry with the access to the candidate's information. You can make a decision to accept or decline the sponsorship. One last thing to show you before we move back is settings up here. Every candidate is asked to review their settings periodically with their availability. Are the availability 30 days notice, 60 days notice? If you want to be inactive, you have to select inactive. And the privacy settings, I wanted to show you briefly the privacy settings. We have two settings, standard and custom. We recommend you always start out with standard. Standard is designed to protect you, the recruiter, and protect the candidate. So if we go to the privacy settings for this particular candidate, you can see that certain information is public and certain information is private. So for example, name, phone, cell, LinkedIn, all private. Moving further down, current company, education and school, private. Work culture, preferences, references, picture, video, resume, all private. So again, this is the default state, the standard state that we believe blocks a candidate's identity from being figured out. You can do even more than that if you wish by going to the customized settings. So let me log out of the application here, go back to the PowerPoint slides and kind of wrap this up. And then, of course, I am eager for any questions that you may have. I do see a question typed in. This question from Stephen, is it possible to add notes that are not visible to the candidate? For example, adding my notes from a phone or email screen, not all of which I want the candidate to see, say unsuitable for one role, suitable for another. I have to admit, we do not have a specific place at this point for adding your own private notes in our system, but I think that's an excellent idea, and I would commit that I don't think that would be difficult for us to add, so we're going to take that under active consideration, and might quickly, Stephen, have that available. That's a very logical suggestion. We hadn't actually heard that one yet, but I don't see why we can't do that. Again, feel free to add more questions, any of you, as you wish. So, summary, why become a recruiter in the first place with Staffingbook? And I should mention, we don't expect anyone to drop their existing recruiting practice and just, stop everything and start working on Staffingbook. We view this as an add-on, incremental line of business for you to really tap the passive candidate marketplace. Over time, you may elect to put 100% of your time into this because it's proving it's more leveraged, it's more cost effective for you, you're generating better results. We talked about the path to billing $350,000 a year for a single recruiter. If you're part of an agency or part of an office, you have multiple recruiters, you potentially could do 2, 3, 4 times the $350K per year, depending upon how your office is set up. Building a passive candidate pool, we talked about the 4 steps very, very briefly. Identify, approach, mobilize, and mentor. The mentor stage being kind of a new positioning for the recruiters. You're there as a career guide, an advisor. You review opportunities together. You might place a candidate 3 or 4 times over a 15 or 20-year period, but you're really investing in a true partnership, long-term relationship. Covered new rules of engagement. We did a demonstration, showed you how to build your profile very briefly, how to invite and sponsor candidates, making sure your candidates' profiles are protected. I did not show you how to Staffingbook verify your candidate. I want to keep this on track time-wise, but we ask that you verify your candidate by going through a very brief checklist that you've interviewed them, either by phone or in person, that you're prepared to stand behind the credentials that they have presented. And then in the case of temporary or contract candidates, you can actually indicate that you've verified their right to work in the U.S. I've seen a recent pay stub, verified zip code of residence, things like that. Inviting employers to view candidates, we showed you that. Responding to inquiries from employers, we showed you that. Negotiating fees and terms, very briefly, we covered that. Printing out a final agreement, we showed you that. How much does it cost? Right now, there's no cost for a recruiter to get in the system and put up to 10 candidates in there. So, and one other thing I might offer for the recruiters on the line, if you get involved and get candidates going and get sort of established a little bit prior to December 31st, you're going to be grandfathered in a more favorable subscription way in the new year. We'll be announcing our subscription pricing in January. It's going to include multiple levels of subscriptions, everything from free trials all the way up to spend $100, $150 a month for the more advanced set of features. But if you get in and get registered prior to December 31, we're going to take extra special care of those folks to ease their transition into the subscription-based model. So at this point, I would take any questions. There's actually a capability where you can raise your hand, and if you raise your hand, I'm going to be able to unmute you, and you can ask a question. And I'll keep going while some of you may be thinking about a question that you have. Just the one question that Stephen has asked so far. Just in terms of kind of winding down here, we really are very committed to the outside recruiter. We've built this system, designed it around, we believe, your needs, your way to be connected in a marketplace, your way to access more employers, make more placements, certainly be in a position to mentor and approach passive candidates in a way you've never been potentially able to before. we're completely committed to your success. You know, without without your success, we're not going to be successful, and we mean that very, very sincerely. If is there anything we can do to make you more successful or to help you get established in Staffingbook, or questions that you have, you know, we're going to jump. So don't hesitate to ask. And then just by way of closing, you know, on behalf of myself and Joanne Schumacher, our VP of Subscriber Services, really encourage you to get registered and get in the system prior to December 31. It will be to your advantage. And at any time, you know, we'd love to hear from you. Please give us a call. Please contact us. So thanks very much. And I don't see any questions at this point. So we'll sign off and say thank you very much. Goodbye.